If you reflect on our world map of acceptance and rejection of GMOs, a puzzle immediately becomes apparent. If there's so much utility for plant breeders and farmers in genetic engineering, why should there be so many countries that have rejected the technology? We don't find the same pattern with other new technologies like cell phones, computers, social media. We will examine specific reasons for acceptance or rejection of GMOs across countries and individuals in subsequent modules and make them concrete later in this section. But we want to introduce some dimensions on which objections are based. I find the scientists I work with and teach with are surprised that there's rejection of the technology. After all, these scientists say, science is universal. There are no serious national differences of opinion in the way science should be done, nor in conclusion about the science behind GMOs, nor about the scientific evaluation of the utility of the technology. Their surprise comes from a notion of scientific consensus, which we'll explore later in this course. Once a scientific consensus is reached, as with global warming, which took some time to get to, many scientists expect conversion around these conclusions, at least in the scientific community. But some objections to GMOs challenge the conclusion that the science itself all points in one direction. There are a lot of variants in the studies. Others object that the science does not have all the answers anyway, and some object on the grounds that the important questions about GMOs cannot be settled by science. As someone who's not a scientist, I find that social, cultural, and political differences are especially important in understanding objections that scientists frequently overlook. This is true for all technologies, but seems especially prominent in agricultural biotechnology. Why is that? All new technologies present possibilities of new risk and promises of new benefits. We as individuals make decisions about the balance, consider a decision about surgery or even air travel. As a society, we hope to have institutions that make a judgment for our collective interest, balancing risk and benefits. Let's say a new pharmaceutical for a deadly disease or a new energy source. The map we presented represented different decisions at this societal level. Some countries allow GMOs, some do not. Why is that? The balance between risk and utilities is a major explanation. So first, objections will vary because the utility of biotechnology varies across social groups. Not everyone's a farmer, and not all farmers find specific biotech crops useful to their situation. Farmers in India, China, and the US grow Bt cotton, for example, but Europeans have mostly no great interest in growing cotton at all. Second, objections vary because there are big differences across countries in attitudes towards science, in regulatory styles, and in cultures of risk aversion, and in national experiences with technology, its benefits and its failures. Think of the difference of Europe, the United States, and Japan on nuclear power, for example. Third, in a world system of great inequality, objections arise because there are differences in the ability of countries to take advantage of genetic engineering without dependence on other countries or multinational firms. China, India, and Brazil are in different situations than most of Africa, for example. Finally, objections differ because of big differences in the way new agricultural technologies affect the larger society. Independently of the technology itself, these differences themselves offer grounds for objection that may be politically powerful, no matter what the net balance of utility and risk or the settled nature of the science. For example, who controls the technology? What are the nation's rules about property? Who benefits? Who does not? Who might be harmed? How trustworthy are the firms and governments that evaluate the technology? And what networks are available for obtaining trusted information about risk and benefits? As a consequence of these differences, we find there is not just one GMO debate, but many GMO debates, each reflecting the political, economic, cultural, and social arrangements of the society considering use of biotechnology in agriculture. Nevertheless, some elements of the global GMO debate are common, and we will discuss those systematically in subsequent sessions while encouraging students to investigate differences across countries.